you don't think it can happen to you.
The hit-and-run chase in California, a motorcycle rider witnessing a driver slam into several cars and then speeding away.
It can happen to you within seconds, a blink of an eye.
Tonight about the man suspected of killing a woman in a hit-and-run and his plan to evade justice.
When you take your eyes off the road for just seconds, when you're driving your car, oh, yes, it can happen to you. See, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. When the sands of time will run out within your hourglass.
New at 10, a hit and run caught on video, and now a teenager and his family are looking for the driver who took off.
He was a victim of a distracted driver hitting the road while riding his motorcycle going 65 miles per hour. He nearly lost his life. Now on a crusade to help save lives and prevent someone else from becoming a victim, the creator of DistractedDriversBusted.com and now the host of this podcast, it's Howard Drescher.
All right, welcome. Welcome to another show of DistractedDriversBusted.com, the podcast show. I am your host, Howard Drescher, the creator of DistractedDriversBusted.com, and of course now this podcast show. You can follow me on Twitter at DistractedDBTV, at DistractedDBTV, and of course on Facebook, it's DistractedDB. And if you're listening to this podcast, you probably already know you can get the show on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcast. Just type in the keyword DistractedDB. So, my question to you for today is, how's everybody doing? I'm hoping everybody's doing a fantastic job and feeling great and just feeling good. Quite honestly, to tell you the truth, I'm feeling pretty good. These last couple of weeks have been a little bit stressful for me in some levels. Some levels, they're not. I'm working on a couple of different projects, as you know. But I'm still going to continue to recover from the sickness that I had. I seem to be doing well. I don't feel as tired as I used to be anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and say that that's a plus, and I appreciate everybody who listens to the podcast show, whether it be London, Canada, New York, Texas, Chicago, Florida, California checking in. Thank you very much. A lot of people checking in around the world, a lot of different countries. I think I'm going to get a list of all the countries that I've got that listen to the podcast show. And quite honestly, to tell you the truth, I just appreciate it. I do. And if I'm here to save one life, if there's somebody that's listening to this podcast and they remember, oh, there's this dude that's got this thing in California, the podcast, and he's talking about distracted drivers. No DUIs, no hit and runs, no nothing like this. Let's make it a safe, clean, free highway where no one gets killed and nobody gets hurt and there's no crashes along the way. And matter of fact, the news doesn't even report it on it because there's nothing to report. That's what I'm going for. If I can get to that level, that's where I want to be at. And I'm hoping that each and every one of you that listen to this podcast show, you can turn this information to one of your friends, your coworkers, your family members, and you're going to say, hey, let's do this all together. We can't do it just by ourselves. I don't want to be driving down the road, and I don't want anyone to take the sands of time within my own hourglass. I don't want to go to that level. I don't think anybody wants to go to that level, and hopefully that's how it's going to end up being. And because it's really something that is kind of important, we don't want to do this, and yet we end up with stories kind of like this. And here's a story again, and you all know what's coming up right now.
And now it's time for the top story from the previous show.
All right, here's the top story from the previous show, and it comes from KTLA Channel 5 here in Los Angeles. And I appreciate them for allowing me to use the sound. And again, it dealt with a police chase as they're in search of a passenger and a driver who stole a Range Rover, ended up crashing into a four-way intersection where it should have stopped, or a red light, and they just barreled through and ended up killing somebody. They got out of the vehicles and they walked down the road. They ran. They did not want to be there when the police arrived on the scenes. And again, I'm just going to play a short clip of this, and this is the story from the previous show.
A driver drove right through the intersection of Nordhoff and Havenhurst Avenue here in North Hills, killing one woman and injuring 3 other people. The driver and his passenger decided not to stay on the scene or call for help, instead running away. Now police released surveillance video hoping you can recognize the driver. Neighbors in this North Hills community were alarmed to hear what was going on outside their windows at 5:30 this morning. When we heard the crash, we got up and I said, "Oh, they crashed." We came out and the cars were already there. Martha and Esteban came out to find this black 2016 Range Rover with its grille smashed in, one woman dead in another car, and the driver nowhere to be found. My daughter saw them run off. I didn't see them. They already left by the time we came out. Surveillance video given to us by LAPD shows the Range Rover speeding north on Havenhurst Avenue, running the red light before crashing into a Toyota at the intersection.
That was the top story from the previous show.
All right, that's the top story from the previous show, and it comes from KTLA Channel 5 here in Los Angeles, and I appreciate them for allowing me to use the sound. And quite honestly, to tell you the truth, at this point in time, I do not believe that the officers that are on the pursuit of these 2 gentlemen or the young lady, whoever might have been behind the wheel, and the passenger, I don't feel that they've actually even apprehended them yet, but we're hoping, and that's all we can do at this point in time. We can just hope and pray that they get taken off the road before they do any more damage like they did to that young lady, and she ended up dead. All right, when we come back, here's a story from 8 News Now in Las Vegas. Exotic rental cars raising concern? We'll get into that and much more right after this.
You're listening to the DistractedDrivers.com podcast. We'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived in Philadelphia. Local time is 3:05 p.m. and the temperature is 67 degrees. At this time, you are now free to use your cellular devices.
You know that feeling when you get to turn your phone on after the plane lands? You can have that feeling every time you drive. Make sure your cell phone is stowed away whenever you are behind the wheel.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and catch the bus. Text and miss your stop. Wait. Text and be late to work.
Sorry, I'm late.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi.
Oh, hey.
Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Now, back to the DistractedDrivers.com podcast.
All right, welcome back to DistractedDriversBusted.com podcast show. I am your host, Howard Drescher, the creator of DistractedDriversBusted.com. And, of course, now this podcast show. You can follow me on Twitter at DistractedDBTV, at DistractedDBTV, and, of course, on Facebook, it's DistractedDB. Here's a story that I've got. It's very interesting. I didn't realize that these vehicles, they're called exotic vehicles. They're like 3-wheel choppers type situation where they have the 2 wheels in the front, 1 wheel in the back. And I've seen them on TV, and I've seen them on maybe on the highway every now and then. But I'm thinking, okay, is this a car? Is it kind of a motorcycle? Not really sure. But fortunately, these people ride because they have no hood, no top, so therefore it's kind of like a convertible type situation, and bad things can happen. So in Las Vegas, and this story comes from 8 News now in Las Vegas, and I appreciate them for allowing me to use the sound. I do think in a way that this is kind of like a reverse kind of chopper in a way, where at least a motorcycle chopper, you have the wheel in the front, one wheel, and the 2 in the back. I feel safer, something like that, instead of the 2 wheels in the front and the 1 in the back. Listen to this story. Unfortunately, it had a double fatal crash in Las Vegas, and now it's raising concerns for these exotic rental cars, and they're prompting more and new attentions in trying to get different regulations. Here's again the story from 8 News now.
The fatal crash in Red Rock has some in the rental industry raising concerns once again. 2 men died while driving the scenic loop early Saturday. Joe Moeller spoke to the owner of the rental company, who says this really highlights the needed change. He is live here. Dean Martin and Harmon joining us now with a bit more. Joe?
Brian, just last week we were talking about a fatal crash involving a rented Rolls-Royce. Well, the crash on Saturday was involving a Slingshot. Now, if you don't know what that is, take a look. We're outside of Exotic Cars, Royalty Exotic Cars, that is, here in Vegas. Now, these Slingshots are these 3-wheeled vehicles, and you've probably seen them around town. They are popular daily rentals. Now, the owner of Royalty Exotic Cars says more needs to be done.
And meant to be that 2-person experience.
These Slingshots are built for fun.
It's open, there's no doors.
But Saturday, a joyride turned deadly.
This is more considered a motorcycle than it is a car.
2 men from Massachusetts died in a crash while driving one through Red Rock. Police say speed was a factor. Houston Costa from Royalty Exotic Cars says just about all of the Slingshots in the valley are rentals. He says the deadly crashes have to be addressed.
I don't want people to lose their lives. We've had a very good track record. We pride ourselves in education.
Last week, County Commissioner Michael Knapp directed staff to look into the laws and regulations in the industry to see if there is any room for improvement. Costa worries about the industry.
There's going to have to be change, and I'm going to be at the forefront of this because I don't want to lose my business. I worked really hard for this place.
He believes more enforcement of laws could save lives.
The easiest way to fix this is to have a have an inspector, have an officer, have some law enforcement person, somebody from the city attorney's office, from the county, go and pose as a renter.
Attorney Sam Mirjovsky says the laws are there, but more can be done to prevent the deadly crashes.
These operators should have a kill switch, should be obligated to maintain active monitoring of the car.
Now back out here live, the County Business Licensing Department will bring information forward to the county for consideration at next month's County Commission meeting, and they will see if there's any room for improvement. Reporting live, Joe Moeller, Live Local Now.
All right, and again, that came from Live Local News, or 8 News Now in Las Vegas, and I appreciate them for allowing me to use the sound. Okay, I can see where they're talking about this is happening, but I can also see that, well, is it a car? Is it a motorcycle? Is it kind of like a chopper type situation? Because choppers, they get the same kind of treatment as a motorcycle. Are these considered getting a treatment kind of like a motorcycle? Or are they getting the same kind of treatment as a car? One has to be defined. I don't think they need to have a kill switch on them because eventually, granted, on a motorcycle or a chopper, you have a kill switch. You know if you're danger, you know you're going to end up turning the vehicle off some way, shape, or form. But do you think speed has anything to do with it? Because it seems that it would be kind of easy to roll it over. And if that's the case, maybe that's what we're looking at. Or is it a head-on collision, which it really didn't indicate on exactly how these 2 men died, except they were on the scenic loop early Sunday morning, and they had a fatal crash. It doesn't indicate, were they speeding? Were they drinking? Were they doing anything? So I don't really know. And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. If I don't know, I'm not going to elaborate too much on it until I do some investigating, until I dig into the facts to find out exactly what happened. But I don't really see that much of a problem with these vehicles. because they're no different to me than a reversed chopper. And again, choppers run under the rules of motorcycles, and if you can do that, then so be that said. Let it be there. All right, I dubbed this show The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Now it's time for the good. We'll be back right after this.
You're listening to the DistractedDrivers.com podcast. We'll be right back.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi.
Oh, hey.
Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Papa, why can't we telegraph while riding a horse?
Son, there ain't no one to blame but Jeffro. He was riding old Betsy the Stallion, tip-tapping away at his telegraph, when blam! Ran right into the side of the saloon.
Well, if Jeffro can't do it, neither should you. Don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Neil Armstrong waited 6 hours and 39 minutes to step onto the surface of the moon. Jackie Robinson waited 20 months to play his first game with the Brooklyn Dodgers. And even DiCaprio had to wait 22 years to win an Oscar. You can wait until your destination. Don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Now, back to the DistractedDrivers.com podcast.
All right, welcome back to DistractedDriversBusted.com podcast show. I am your host, Howard Drescher, the creator of DistractedDriversBusted.com, and of course now this podcast show. You can follow me on Twitter at DistractedDBTV, at DistractedDBTV, and of course on Facebook, DistractedDB. You can get the shows on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcast. Type in the keyword DistractedDB. So we've already had the good, we've already had the bad. Now we're going to get the good in the show. And unfortunately, there's a little bit of bad news in this. Some young children lost their parents. But the good part of that, if there is any good part of that, is in this story right here. And this story comes from WMUR 9 and Channel 9. And I definitely appreciate them for allowing me to use the sound on this one. Because a motorcycle club had already organized a benefit for the children to raise money. And I granted that this story has already happened. This story had happened last Saturday or maybe 2 Saturdays ago. But here's what I want to get at. At the end of this story, you're going to hear that where you can still donate money to help the kids, the children of the couple who were killed in a car crash. And again, this story comes from WMUR Channel 9, and I appreciate them for allowing me to use the sound.
They were about their family. They were about the kids.
That's how friends remember Mike and Jacqueline George, devoted parents to their blended family of 6 children. It's why when the couple was killed after their motorcycle crashed on Route 116 in Bethlehem last month, friends started planning ways to show support.
They will be greatly missed. Yeah. And this whole thing is for the kids. Just to take care of them, to honor Mike and Jacqueline, because they would have done it for us.
Lynn Forsyth and Bruce Emmons are organizing a benefit ride with the Flying Iron Motorcycle Club in Bethlehem to raise money for a trust for the children of Mike and Jacqueline. They are expecting hundreds of bikes and cars, and they say North Country businesses have stepped in to help too.
I have seen the North Country come together in the most amazing way.
Lynn says Jacqueline snapped this photo the day of the crash. She'll never forget when the two couples passed each other on the road just minutes before.
I'm going to say that I will always hold that picture in my mind as they passed us. And she put her hand up in the air and she waved with a big smile on her face because she was doing what she loved to do. And that is my last picture of Jacqueline.
You can also donate to the Mike and Jacqueline Benefit Fund at any Passumpsic bank.
All right, again, that story comes from WMUR Channel 9, and I appreciate them for allowing me to use sound. A little heart-wrenching to hear that, but it's good to hear that our motorcycle club has stepped up, and you heard it there at the end. They can donate at a bank, and I really, really appreciate stories like this. This kind of tells me that, yeah, there are good people out there. There are still good people that care for their friends, their families, their children's, if something happened. And you're not going to find that a lot. But when you do find it, it is so precious. It is so caring to the point where it kind of brings you up, kind of brings you to tears in a way. And I don't hesitate very much in the show. Well, like today I am, but I was thinking about the children and what they're going through just as that story ended. But it just warms your heart. And if you listen to the podcast show, you know that I'm all about doing the right thing, making sure things are right. And hopefully, just hoping that we can get to that level real soon. All right, when we come back from the commercial break, okay, we've already had the good and we've had the bad. So I guess you can kind of figure, you know what's coming next. We're going to get the ugly. And when I mean we're going to get the ugly in the stories today, this will close the loop on the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because there is no way that an officer should have done what this guy did. And I hate to call out the officers, but when they're wrong, they're wrong. We'll be back right after this.
You're listening to the DistractedDrivers.com podcast. We'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived in Philadelphia. Local time is 3:05 p.m. and the temperature is 67 degrees. At this time, you are now free to use your cellular devices.
You know that feeling when you get to turn your phone on after the plane lands? You can have that feeling every time you drive. Make sure your cell phone is stowed away whenever you are behind the wheel.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and catch the bus. Text and miss your stop. Wait. Text and be late to work.
Sorry, I'm late.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi. Oh, hey.
Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Now, back to the DistractedDrivers.com podcast.
All right, welcome back to DistractedDriversBusted.com podcast show. I'm your host, Howard Drescher, the creator of DistractedDriversBusted.com. And, of course, now this podcast show. You can follow me on Twitter at DistractedDBTV, at DistractedDBTV, and, of course, on Facebook, DistractedDB. And you can get the shows on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts. Just type in the keyword DistractedDB, and that will get you all the shows, all 7 years worth of shows that we have done thus far. Okay, so now it's time to get to the ugly. And when I mean ugly, I definitely mean ugly. And this story comes from KTNV out there in Las Vegas. Las Vegas is checking in twice today. Wow. Okay, so here's the deal. Police officers, to me, are the hardest working people I know, along with the firemen, first responders, and I put them in that category. As teachers, everybody like that is lumped in. Now, granted, there's a lot of people out there working hard in every field, every facet of life. There is no doubt about that. But when you have these officers putting their lives on the line each and every day, you don't need an officer out there doing his own thing and messing things up. And now, because of his lack of, well, really what should have been what was right, ended up into a deadly suspected DUI crash. That intersection has a history behind it. But there's a police officer who now is heading back home, back to Connecticut. He posted bail on Thursday, probably, I'm going to guess last Thursday. He faces a felony DUI charge for what? Killing his friend who was also an officer. And to me, this is most heart-wrenching. And again, this story comes from KTNV in Las Vegas. Again, I appreciate them for allowing me to use the sound.
Tonight, the police officer involved in that deadly crash is heading back home to Connecticut. But today, Robert Ferrero posted bail. He faces felony DUI charges. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Todd Quinones.
And I'm Trisha Keene. 13 Action News anchor Rachel Moore is live from where the crash happened. And she spoke to businesses in the area who say the intersection has been a dangerous one for years now. Rachel.
You're right, Trisha. This has been the scene of a deadly intersection or deadly crashes over the past couple of years. And in fact, you might remember one 9 years ago is the reason why they added a concrete barrier to this bus stop. But some in the area say that still more needs to be done.
This case is a horrible tragedy.
Connecticut police officer Robert Ferraro has been taken off house arrest and will head back east, according to his lawyer. Ferraro has been charged with a DUI resulting in death and reckless driving. Police say he was the driver of a Rolls-Royce last week that killed his partner, Officer Joshua Castellano. They had known each other since high school.
It's a huge loss for everyone, obviously the Castellano family, and it's just devastating for Robert Ferraro to have lost his best friend and partner.
The deadly crash is one of several that have happened here on Spring Mountain Road in Decatur.
The question that I've been asked is how often do accidents happen? I see at least one a week.
Art Christensen has worked at Crown and Anchor Pub for the better part of a decade. The British-themed bar is open 24 hours, and its driveway is right past the intersection. He remembers an even deadlier crash at these crossroads back in 2012. The graveyard bartender back then heard the crash from inside the pub.
He still has nightmares to this day. It's to see body parts strewn about.
9 years ago, a drunk driver lost control of his car flying down the hill on Spring Mountain Road. He went through the intersection at Decatur and rammed his car into a crowded bus stop. 7 people were hit, 4 of them died. Since then, concrete barriers have been added to the bus stop, but Christensen says the intersection is still dangerous.
You see turn lanes any other part of town, they actually have the bunkers up. And here, there's nothing. It looks like it's just any other lane.
Now, the Safe Community Partnership Program partnered with Clark County to put this concrete barrier up, and we reached out to them to ask if any other improvements they were making to make this intersection safer, so we will continue to stay on this story. Reporting live, Rachel Moore, 13 Action News.
All right. Again, they came from KTNV in Las Vegas. I just don't even know where to go with this. An officer should have known better not to drink and drive. And when you had 2 officers in the car, unfortunately, one lost his life, and I just don't know what to say. It just bothers me that these kinds of things happen when you take your judgment away for 30 seconds. Just 30 seconds. Like I say, in a blink of an eye. Remember, I don't want to die today, do you? Don't let anyone take the sands of time within your own hourglass. Until the next week, please be safe.